All right, so we're back. It's been a little minute, but happy to be back with my brother. Different mother, same father as always, and excited to connect with you, my man. Just want to catch up a little bit. I've got some ideas of things I want to share that I've been up to on my end, but I'd love to, you fill me in on what you've been up to.
I told you I haven't been up to anything. I just came
Okay.
here because you told me to show up.
All right.
It's been how many months? So it's been
It's been
what,
since
one, two,
October. Yeah, you
three
told me
months?
October. Man, it's
Yeah,
been
three
October.
months.
So, one of
Crazy.
the things that inspired me to reach out to you is as I've been growing and expanding and also going through some challenges, right? I think we grow through these. I don't think I know we grow through these challenges. We're all tested. And for me, the test has come in the most for the last few months and even till even now, right? Has been really, and I don't know if this has been true for you, my brother. We're usually on similar paths. For me, it's been a lot of challenges in relationships specifically with my wife in this dimension right now. So in the relationship side, it hasn't been her and it's been me. So it's what I'm noticing, Jay, and I don't know if this is happening with you in Cupcake. If not, get ready because it's coming. A lot of my own triggers. So I'm not hearing what she's actually saying. I'm hearing my trigger. And when she's talking to me, it's triggering my own stuff. And then I respond from that, my brother, from those same triggers back to her. So I project that in me, which is hurt, back to her. So I'm not really hearing her,
Give
and
me an
she's not really
example.
hearing me.
Give me an example.
Give you an example. She doesn't feel supported. Hey, I don't feel
Okay.
supported by you. I don't feel like you're doing things around
What
the
do you
house. I'm
hear?
like,
What do you hear when she
what
says
do
that?
I hear? I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. And then
I see.
at some level, I'm not enough because I've got some issues around me not doing enough. And then I'm like, dude, what do you mean you're not supported? Just yesterday you had a flat tire. I stopped what I was doing, went, found someone to fix the flat tire and did all that stuff for you. What do you mean you're not supported? And she has a trigger around not being supported and having to take on too much. So
Hmm.
she's speaking out
You're
of her
bouncing that
trigger.
back and forth, right? So you're
Yes.
bouncing.
Not only, brother, we're not hearing each other, we're speaking past each other. We're throwing darts at each other, and we're like, so any conversation hurts. It's almost like you've got a wound on your arm, and anything that even mentions it. So we saw some therapy, and dude, it was really helpful to just like, well, hold on, what in me is being triggered? Like, stop. Like, if you're both triggered, like, have a safe word, right? Whatever that is, and we're just starting to practice that now. Like, if you're getting triggered, JR, and you know what that is. You've been with Cupcake long enough, and you know when it's something that she's doing that's triggering you, or it's your own trigger. Dude, stop right there, because otherwise, you're going to get to what kind of one of the therapists and one of the coaches I'm working with calls the old dance steps. You get into
Hmm.
the old dance steps with it. She says this, and then you say that. Come on, everybody knows the salsa merengue steps. You're like, I'm not speaking like anyone who's successful and has an entrepreneurial drive and is married and has kids has these issues. Now, they're not very talked about because a lot of people like that kind of like, hey, everything's fine and hey, let's flex on the gram. But that doesn't
Hmm.
serve my community. My community is served by, look, what are real tools we can use and that they're not alone. Because a lot of times, man, and I've felt this, and even though I've got guys like you and Raul and a few other guys I can turn to, like, hey, yo, I'm struggling, man. I need some help. And anyone listening to this, that's one of my guys. If you ever need anyone, dude, reach out to me. Because I know when you get in that hole, it's just your own head and you're looping. So feel free to reach out to me or Jay or anyone because you got people here that support you. At the same time, a lot of it's back to you. It's your own trigger that you want to sit with it ultimately and say, like, dude, what's really up here? Like, what is really being triggered? And we all have that, JR. Usually it's from like us being little kids or little boys and something you didn't get from your mom or your dad. Like, we all have those. And then what happens is our spouse serves like our best personal development tool, almost like a mirror, JR. So they're going to put that right up for you. Boom. But you don't want to look at that. So you speak past each other. And now what her and I are trying to do or working on doing it together is making it a game and making it a rule where we don't speak to each other out of a trigger. We don't speak to each other, Jay. This is really good when the therapist said it yesterday. Dude, we don't speak to each other out of our traumas. We speak to each other out of our divinity. Because Jay, you and her are divine, but you can't speak to each other out of human trauma. You get me? Because all you now out of the human trauma, all you both are going to do is hurt each other because you're hurt already and she's hurt already. And then it just gets, and then you're back in the same old dance steps and no one grows, no one evolves. Here's the beautiful thing about the pain. It'll get so bad with us. It got so bad that now we're actually excited about a new step because the old way hurt so much that we can't go back in the old way. Before we used to kind of like skirt around it or dance around it and we could deal with it. but it's gotten so bad where we just can't have regular even communication hurts. So it's like, okay, well, this is good in the sense that that pain is not creating us to find a new solution and forces us to go back into ourselves and heal that trauma, and then speak out of your divinity. And sure, you can share that trauma with Cupcake, but don't share it with her when she's in trauma. You know what I mean? Somebody else who triggers a lot of this stuff is our parents. Our parents, or maybe her parents. They'll trigger a lot of that stuff in you. And a lot of it isn't my wife's mom, isn't my mom. It's my own shit about that I'm not willing to go look at and own, because the perception of the pain is so bad. Are you with me, Jay, or am I just like too out there, bro?
I'm following you. And so a couple things, because this is one of my great regrets, our sessions that we have recorded. There was one session where I talked about, let's just try to get rid of suffering. And this is something that I've come to grips with since the last time we recorded one of these, is we need that suffering. We're supposed to suffer, because the suffering is what causes us to grow and learn, and it fortifies us. So I want to get on the record saying that suffering is required for this life. And Jesus is a perfect example of that, isn't he? And I am with you, and I will give credit to Cupcake, because she started way, way before me, because I'm an immature little snot-nosed brat sometimes.
Me too,
And she
bro.
put
Me
up
too.
with me. But she would always, in the arguments, and I think we've talked about this before, is boom, shuts down and walks away. She shuts down and walks away so that we're not spitting that venom at each other. So she put the defense mechanism in a long time ago with the gap. And then she will come back later and explain to me, I am mad because of this, this, and this. And I get it. And so fortunately, she mentored me in that way. And I'm like, sometimes I still want to be a brat or being, just be me. And now I'm doing better, because she takes that step. She goes and explains to me, well, now we can resolve something, because we know what it is that we're trying to resolve. And so we've actually have already been through that a while ago. And it was really, really bad. I mean, years ago when I first did 75 hard, and I didn't appreciate like that she was cooking keto meals for me, and that she was dancing around my workout routine and all that. I never appreciated her doing that. So we went through all that, Ray, like when you first met me, like so hard, so far down. And that's where we started building up our communication. So that was years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, that we already went through that. And she started developing these new tools. But that's the way it was. I wouldn't appreciate her. She would do all this stuff. And then we just, you. That was like you. You.
Yeah.
And just, that you. When you know that you do this, and it burns, right? It burns.
Or the worst is like, you always, or you never.
Always.
Oh, dude, those are brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, but I get it. So we have that pattern now. We're in a different place, because we have been down that road now, where I feel we're a little more in sync. And I think a lot of that has to go back to, we're both growing in faith together. And so our minds are just in different places. And I am doing a lot of work to try to be better, because I am so far, I'm a sinner.
Yeah.
I mess up. I'm a child. I'm immature, and I'm trying to work on that, because I think she deserves better. And she's given me an example. And so I learned from her example, and I grow, and I got to take it to the next level so we can keep uplifting one another.
I love that. House divided falls on itself. Like if one is doing the work and the other one isn't, it's both. And when you're in a relationship like the ones JR and I are in, where it's a spiritual relationship, and what I mean by that is both people are looking to make each other better. Now, no one isn't forcing the one to be better. It's just that's the nature of the relationship, is to grow and expand in faith and growth and being a better parent and being a better partner. Those are relationships. I was on a call with someone earlier today, and he goes, Ray, I wish my wife got this. And I was like, man, be careful what you wish for, my brother. Be careful what you wish for, because, for me, it's the only way to go, right? For me, I want this. I chose this. I couldn't be in another relationship that didn't expose me and didn't cause me to grow, and didn't kind of like, I feel like the oyster, Jay, when the oyster gets a little bit of sand and it grates inside, and it's actually the muscle of him like fighting the thing that creates the pearl. Well, for me, I want to be pearling. Like I'm committed to like growing and expanding, which is the purpose of this call and why I love you, my brother. But I can see that relationship isn't for everybody. Not everybody wants that level of friction, because it is friction. And in that friction, you grow. It's not bad friction. Like it's just, I love, hey, first, let me commend you on that. The fact that you made the spiritual step of seeing suffering as a way to grow, it is the way to grow. I mean, how do you have night without the daylight, right? There, it's not like it's a polar opposite. Like if you can get the message from that suffering, and it can cause expansion. It's kind of like look at this oyster. You create the pearl. You put a little bit of work, you callous your hands, and not callous in a bad way. It's just you keep doing the work, you keep showing up. So for some people, that's the pearl life or the callous life is a life where you grow and expand. There might be some more graceful ways to do it where you suffer less, but I think it's part of the path of growing. Let me rephrase that. I know it's part of the path of true spiritual growth.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I just don't think it's possible. It's like the crucible of pain, right? It's the fire. It's the fire that forms you and hardens you. And so I now look at suffering, and I'm a Catholic, so we're supposed to be loving suffering,
right?
But now I am learning to embrace it and welcome it as a part of life, because I wouldn't be where I am today, and if it wasn't for all the bad times that brought me home, taught me lessons, made me pay attention.
Yeah, and you end up, I talked to a few guys at the gym here and there, and they're like, when they're starting out in their journey, they're like, man, this is like suffering, this is painful in the beginning. Yeah. But once you enjoy it, like I go in there smiling, like this is what we do now. Like it's not so over time. It doesn't have to be that suffering. Over time, you learn to enjoy the process, and you see it for what it is. It's an opportunity to grow, right? Suffering is an opportunity to grow. And it too will pass, right? This idea, this too shall pass. Suffering isn't forever, but sometimes we think it is. You know what I mean? So we get caught up in this idea that you know what I mean, Jay. You've been there. Like, the pain's never going to go away, and you talk to yourself in that way. But this too shall pass. Only your soul is permanent. Only the spirit of you is permanent. Everything else is temporary.
That's the gift, man, and I think that's what people. So one of the things I've been working on is an internal perspective. This is going to sound weird, but somebody asked me, like, what are you working on? What's your goal? And I told them to die well, right? To die well, to know that I did everything I could do here so that I could have that eternal life in heaven. And that's what I think makes the difference, because when we're here, this is a short life. We're humans. And like you said, it seems like it's going to last forever, but we know from experience that every bit of suffering we've been through comes to an end at some point. The suffering that is forever is a life in hell away from God. And so when I start trying to put that in perspective, like imagine really suffering forever in darkness, gloom, never having joy again. Like whatever this little thing is that I'm going through here, I know that I will get through it, and I know I will learn from it. And so it's helping me be more patient, be a little bit nicer, and maybe, and I think I told you I was struggling with this before, maybe helping me see the Jesus Christ in other people so that I can accept them the way they are and love them, even if I don't necessarily like them right now.
I get it. I mean, I think when you say that, to see the Christ in the other, like one of the things I'm working on deeply is seeing the Christ in myself, right? Because you can only see your brother if you see yourself, because your brother is only a reflection of you, right? You can only see what's in your consciousness. And what is your consciousness? Well, your consciousness is what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and your level of faith. And faith, I mean, like, those old rheostats, Jay, where you turn them to the right and you turn the light on and the light gets bigger the more you turn it. Well, that's level of faith. So the faith is always there. The light is always the light, right? The light of God is always shining on us. But we get to choose our faculties due to our free will. We get to choose how much of that light we're going to allow in or not. The light's always there, but we get to regulate, if you will, through our thoughts, feelings, and this idea of faith, which I'm also calling intention, faith. More like, Jay, when you squat or you do an exercise and you can say, hey, I'm going to do this exercise without an intention. I'm just going to do it. And then you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to try and move this weight as quickly, as fast as possible. And that's your intention. And that changes the exercises completely. Well, that's kind of how I'm likening faith. So like this regulator, where if you can crank up that intensity and you have a clear thought of what you really want to be, and you're feeding that with your heart, and then you have that clear intention or that faith, then you create whatever you want to create. You're creating the way God creates. This is how God creates. We're all made in the image of creators forever. You're always creating. You were made to create. How you create with your thoughts, with your heart, and with your faith, with the intensity of which you create with. You can choose to make things. The person who makes things is the human in you. Or you can choose to be about the Father's business and then have him do that through you. But you've got to be conscious of your thoughts, your feelings, and what's your intention? What level of data, minute to minute, Jay, this is what this practice is about. Minute to minute. What are you focused on? What are you feeling? Are you allowing him to shine his light through you? Or are you trying to diminish your light and focus on the external and having that trying to make you happy? Are you living that consciousness of the divine flow coming out from you? Right, which is abundance, really, not just material abundance, but true abundance coming from within outward, right? Kingdom of heaven is inside, right? All these other things will be added to you. Seek ye the kingdom first, right? Once you feel that inside you, Jay, and you're one with that, then you take the action, then you co-create, right? Then you go into creation. Otherwise, you're separate, you're at lack, right? This is kind of the stuff I've been studying and then really looking to embody and integrate minute to minute, but it is a practice. And being conscious of what you're thinking about and being conscious of what you're feeling. Because I'll be honest with you guys, lack and separation and struggle is something that the world has taught me and I've made my own, the human me. But the divine me knows that that's not the way. It knows that there's no security in your 401k. There's no security in your investments. There's no safety out there. The safety is inside. The safety is in the kingdom of heaven. The safety is as you're dwelling in the secret place of the Most High, right? And the shadow of the Almighty, there's your safety. If you start with that consciousness, that you're one with infinite substance, that infinite abundance is yours already, and then you make investments from that place, way different. I'm not saying don't invest, don't save, don't buy insurance, don't make moves, but don't make moves out of scarcity and lack and separation, because it'll never get whole. If you're not feeling whole, get to wholeness first. If you think your net worth is going to make you happy and you don't feel worthy, get to feeling worthy first and then go improve your net worth. It doesn't work the other way around. Worthiness is inherent in you. Does that make sense, Jay, what I'm saying? Did I just go on a long rant or people not follow me here?
No,
are you with me?
No, it's interesting. Trying to see if we need to come back and get a little more practical. But how do you? All right, I get it. Right, so we're connected with the Father. It's a cycle, it's a continuum, and we got to stay connected. And
Yes.
so for me, the way that I look at this is saying yes and saying yes to God, saying yes to God's will. And people think that you just say yes and that's it. But you and I were having a text conversation the other day, and it's not just saying yes once, but it's saying yes like every minute of every hour of every day. So what are some of the practical things? How do you keep that connection going to keep the flow?
Great question. I think it's a practice, Jay, and I'm working on this as well, of keeping your consciousness centered on him, centered on abundance, centered as one, keeping the heart open. So I've got several practices. One that I really enjoy is the heart math. I focus on breathing of the heart and opening up, especially like if I get into a fight with Christy or somebody else. Everyone in here feels. I think feeling is a dimension of love. And it's a feeling. If you're disconnected, you're not going to think it. You're going to feel it. You feel disconnected, Jay, right? Think about it. Like when you're not connected, you feel like, man, I'm really struggling here, right? Or I'm suffering. If you're in suffering, that's a sign. And again, don't stay in suffering. Use it as, I'm not saying suffering is bad, but if you're suffering, it's because you're not connected. If you're in lack, it's because you're not connected. You're not supposed to be in lack or suffering or in fear and anxiety. You were meant to be there, but you can cut yourself off from divine flow by your thoughts and what you feel. And the world will certainly teach you that, right? The world of man will teach you that. The world of man will teach you, hey, you're separate. There is no love. Hey, it's dog eat dog. You can't really trust anybody. That's the world of man. But the universe of God is abundance. The air you breathe is abundance. So it's almost like a constant, Jay, remembering the truth. It's a constant renewing of the faith. It's a constant until it becomes automatic. I mean, and this is all our brother did for us. This is the fact that Jesus did this. We can do this. He had to practice this. He went through the same stuff we had. He had doubts, right? That which I don't want to do, I do, right? Like these things, he went through this too. So you can train your consciousness to be aligned with God consciousness, because it is God consciousness. But The human, we live in the human realm, and we call that the realm of forgetfulness. That's what my therapist said. She called it yesterday. She called it the veil of forgetfulness. The human is the veil of forgetfulness. And I'm going, if you forget, yeah, you forget for that minute or two. So I think it's a practice, Jay. This is not a science. This is a practice. This is an art. As the more you practice coming back to yourself. So I like what you said, Jay. I want to die well. Man, die every day. Jay spoke about this, right? Die to the false self. Well, who's that false self? Well, that human you think you are. That human you identify with. He's not wrong. He's not bad. He's not different. But don't identify him. This is something you created. You are pure, divine, child of God, God conscious, right? Made in the image of, created to create, an individualized spark of divine consciousness, Jay. You have a gift. I have a gift, and they're all different. And God will use you through your gifts. Like he's put these gifts in you, and your magic is different than my magic, and my way of saying is different than yours. But that's the beauty in it. When you allow that light to shine versus the human darkness, right? And you live out of your divinity versus your humanness. It's really a constant retraining the mind to remember that you are who you really are. And we forget. And if you're like me, I forget all the time.
Alzheimer's.
I probably spend the majority of the day forgetting who I am. Where'd he go? I don't know. And then it's like lunch. He's gone. He's not here. He's here, but he's somewhere else, right? So, but it's a practice, guys.
Out to lunch. So interestingly enough, we said it was October when we spoke, and I think I did a silent retreat in the beginning of December, and I had this moment, and I want to connect a couple dots here because we're talking about that struggle of seeing Christ in that your neighbor, your brothers, your sisters, and I still have it. Let's not play around, but I'm getting better at it. But I went to this silent retreat.
I love the authenticity, my brother. I do. I love the authenticity, man. One of the things I love about you.
So I was, I felt good. You and I were talking a lot at that time, and I felt good in my spiritual life, my faith life, fitness, all that. Family was good, and they had this thing, and I just couldn't understand why I didn't like it. It was a presentation on like the Eucharist and like a bleeding Eucharist and all these weird things that people will go venerate and like go to see, like the veil of Christ and all the stuff, those idols, right? And I was struggling. I didn't want anything to do with it, frankly. And I'm like, I don't know why I feel this way. And I went and talked to a priest. They gave us some time, and we could either go to confession or talk to a priest about whatever was on our mind privately. And like I said, I thought I was good in my faith. I thought I was doing awesome. And he asked me a question that kind of knocked me on my butt. And it was simple. How's your relationship with Christ? And I'm like, well, I pray to God the Father daily. I do a rosary daily. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm talking to Jesus at all. And we're Christians, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy cow, this is the resistance I'm hitting. And it opened up my eyes to realize, how could I see the Christ in anybody else if I myself, which is something that you just said, I myself was not connected to Christ the way I should be. And it opened my eyes. And then right after that, we have something that we do called adoration. And they have the host there, and you go and you sit for an hour in silence in the presence of Christ. And Christ spoke to me. You guys are going to think I'm nuts. That's fine. He's like, hey, buddy, what about me? He's like, dude, you're talking to everybody else. What about me? And I was like, wow, all this time I thought I was a good Christian. No wonder I haven't had the relationship. And that's what I've been figuring out. So it's been making it a whole lot easier now that I can feel him connected in me to connect in him in other people. But it wasn't until that moment where the glaringly obvious was pointed out to me that I realized, oops, I've been missing the Christ in my Christianity.
100%. I'm a lot like you, man. I need that spiritual brick to hit me in the head. I'm like, hey, Dodo, like it took me a little bit to connect with Christ like that. And the Christ in you, the child of God in you, will connect with him like immediately. As soon as you go there, as soon as you open up the heart, he'll meet you there every time. Like if you set that intention in your prayer or meditation and you be still and you wait, be still and know I am, dude, he'll come meet you there every time. And you feel it. Like, okay, this is real. At least for me, he kind of like says things. He says things in a way where it's him. Like you just kind of like know, like the way things are said or like the insight. It's something it's something the Ray of me would never say. It's like it'll say it like in an obvious way. Look, here it is, right? Like, so I've had that experience as well, and I could definitely be more intentional about connecting to that Christ within me, and also again recognizing the Christ of you. So what I'm saying is, yes, there's our Christ, our brother, right? Jesus Christ, that person, but also there's the Christ in us, which I'm calling the divine in us, which I'm calling the universal spirit in us. That the child of God, the Christ in us already. We are that. We are divine, right? All that he can do, we can do and more. He said that. I didn't say that. He said that. All these things and more you shall do. I didn't say that. And I don't roll like that with the Bible. Like I read it. It's a great book. But I read a lot of shit. But I know his language. Now that guy, like I don't just read the Bible. I read all his works. And most of all, when I read a work, I try and connect with him personally and say, hey, can you verify what you mean by this, man? Because I'm like struggling here. And I'll ask that question. I'll go to prayer meditation and say, look, man, my father and I are one. What did you mean by that? Like, help me. Because that's a strong statement you just made. Like these sacred texts, like that, like my father and I are one. I'll ask the question and I get multiple meanings different times depending on what it needs. This is why he spoke in parable. Things can mean different things when you're at different stages in your life. Have you noticed that? Have you read different things? You're like, oh wow, I didn't catch that. Well, because you weren't ready for that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think Jesus is my favorite teacher by far. But I think everyone gets to have that connection with either him or any of the ascended masters. I just choose him because he chose me. We just have that connection. But I know people that have that with Buddha and with other teachers. But you choose you, but have that connection to the divinity in you, whether it's Jesus, whether it's Buddha, whatever you want to call it, whether it's the universal law or God inside you. Like we're all divine, and the more we can connect to the divine inside and see ourselves as divine, the more we could see the divinity in the person, and the more. This is why he said, "Judge not by appearances, but judge righteously." What did he mean? See with vision. You don't see shit with the physical eye. You don't see shit with your senses. You see with the open heart. Vision comes from the inside. So you can only see your brother as a function of yourself, and you can only love your brother if you love yourself. Right? This goes back to that commandment, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. You can't see your neighbor if you can't see him in yourself. You can't see the Christ in you. You'll never see it in him. So you bitch at him and you complain at him and you project. The worst thing we can both do, Jay, is, and I do it all the time. Whatever I don't want to own it within me, hey, I'm being critical. Hey, whatever I don't want to own in me, I throw that to somebody else, and then I judge them, right? Because you can't just project it. You gotta then judge them. You gotta kick him in the nuts. He's a bitch. He's probably on the juice. My man's on juice right there, bro. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's a constant struggle, brother. It's a constant struggle. To add on to what you said about keeping the flow, I have had to, in order to stay connected, bro. I'm praying like 5 or 6 times a day now, and awesome. It's because I fall off and do exactly that, and then I catch myself, and I'm like, man, I really shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have thought that. Why am I doing that? It's been a little bit too long since my last prayer, because if I could just keep those prayers close enough, I stay a little bit more zen and more calm. But I noticed that the only way for me to keep my gaze on him by I have to do it, man. I'm a lowly sinning human, and I have to keep on like, oh man, I'm sorry. Connect. Whatever the prayer is, whatever the reading is, whatever I'm listening to is like, I keep myself connected all day to the point, dude, I'm not even listening to audiobooks hardly anymore. It's like prayers, meditations, all that stuff, because I know, man, I slip right away. I slip, I fall, and that fall turns into a tumble, can turn into me breaking my neck. And so now I'm obsessed.
You look away and it's like, dude, like, 2 weeks go by and you're like, dude, what happened? Right. And you rise up and you're like, dude, no wonder I'm struggling, because I'm separate. As long as we're not one, we're separate. And if we're separate, then I'm going to struggle. Right. Every time you're separate, you're going to suffer. Right. And then you stay in the suffering. You don't learn the lesson when you're separate. You know what I mean? Something else that maybe some of our listeners can do that I've found helpful: forgiveness. Forgiveness is a magic tool that links you right back up. Right? Because when you ask for forgiveness, you're forgiving the judgment. So you're almost clearing the space. And then Because the connection's always there. You don't have to establish it. It's more about getting the obstacles that are out of the way, and forgiveness does that, right? Because if we're one, then the connection's always there. And if he knows everything I need before I even ask, then why ask for anything at all? He knows I have need for shit. He knows I have needs to get swole and be a soldier. He knows all this. You know, you know what I mean? He knows I have a need for a little creatine. He knows this, right? And it's his good pleasure to give me the kingdom, right? So I don't ask for a whole lot in my prayer or meditation, but I do look to connect, and I do look to remove the obstacles more than anything, because the obstacles, my human in me is creating those obstacles. It's not the divine in me creating obstacles. The divine in me wants to connect. He wants to connect people like you and share the message, right? Speak, share them. But I think forgiveness is something that can be practiced minute to minute, moment to moment. There's always something to forgive. And really, you're just at the core of it, Jay, you're forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
You're never forgiving anybody. No one did anything to you. It's you doing it to yourself.
That's it, baby. We're making a practice. It's been good. That's one of the things that we're doing as a family more and more often is we go to confession and we get forgiveness. And sometimes, it feels like I haven't done that much, but there's something, we're supposed to be reflections of God's light. And I feel like even the little stuff starts putting speckles and dust on that reflection and dimming it. And so that idea of being forgiven and forgiving is huge. And I mean, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. It's a struggle, but it's beautiful.
It is, because the human doesn't want to forgive. It's the Christ in you that forgives. The human wants to judge and pick apart and criticize and condemn and be right and feel to be I'm better than, right? Like that's what the human wants to do. So it takes a greater will and a greater commitment to have that, and to have that consciousness. If we can develop that consciousness that Christ had, and we can because he did, then let's work on that. Let's practice that. Let's be about that. Let's return to that as often as we can. As often as we become unconscious, let's become conscious. Let's start to remember who we really are and forget who we think we are. Jay, I went to this, I think you'll like this. So Joe Dispenza has this thing he calls neuro change solutions. So it's for companies and people that aren't used to meditating or doing any kind of spiritual work. And he goes with these trainers to companies, and they do this for people that have never heard of the work, or have never meditated, or have never done any of this work, right? So they had a seminar here, like a little 2-day, and one of his best people came in. And I said, well, dude, if she's coming, and I heard about it through the grapevine. So Christy and I went. It's a little bit different than his work. It's more about tools and giving companies, employees tools. And one of the things that was interesting is they asked, think of a change, and I'll ask all our listeners to do that as well. Think of a change, Jay, in your life that you made, and you made successfully. That was a big change for you, but you actually made it. Hey, you know what? I'm going to make this change, and you were happy. You thought about it, bro?
Yeah.
You thought you got the change? Okay. What I found is when they asked everyone in the room, myself included, when they made the change, it was, for most people, maybe for Jay, some people might be different, but for most people, it was painful in the past, it was painful in the present, and it was painful in the future. And they had no other choice but to change because it was so painful. And they were happy that they changed, but pain really drove the change. Is that true for you?
And now I thought about multiple different ones as you were saying that, but yeah.
And again, it's not right or wrong, but this idea of suffering, Jay, leads to growth. So now, then they ask the question, well, think about a change you didn't make, a change that you want to make, because consciously, hey, you know what, if I ate a little better, or if I took care of this thing over here, or if I just saved a little bit more money, or whatever I did, think of a change that you should make, right? Because it's in your highest good and it feels good when you do some of it, but you haven't made it that. You haven't fully committed to that new way of being or that new person. So think of that change, or of the change that you want to make, right? Hey, the person I want to be, but there's a gap from who I'm currently being to who I want to be. Do you have that one? Everyone has that in some area of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have that one? And Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, most people in the room know the cost. They know, hey, you know what? I know what I could get if I changed, and I know what not changing is costing me, right? I know what not going on the walk is costing me. And I know what that is, right? Would you say you know that? You know the cost of not changing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, everyone knows that. Here's what was a good question that they asked, and you have to journal it out and go deep. Pray on it, meditate with it, and journal it out, I would suggest. What benefit is not changing giving you?
Comfort.
At some level, yeah, no, you're right on, bro. at some level, everyone in the room who hadn't made a change, meaning they haven't, and to change means to become a new person, right? Because once you change, you really change your personality. You become the fit JR doesn't drink. He doesn't even think about drinking, right? So it's a new personality. So what happens is most of us, out of some kind of comfort or self-preservation, some benefit we're getting that's usually subconscious. So you have to journal it out. It's in there. You'll get to it, but it's not the top of the, it's not like right on the, right? Because otherwise you'd have made the change. And it's actually comforting in that it keeps you where you're at, right?
Yeah. Homeostasis.
And now let me speak a little bit on comfort, what I learned about comfort throughout that event. There's comfort and then there's familiar. It's not really comfortable because you wouldn't want to change it if it was comfortable. It's just familiar. You're just used to it. It's a devil you know versus a devil you don't. You know what I mean? So this idea of that we'll choose warm beer and cold pizza because it's familiar, but not because it's comfortable. I noticed that when I put the word familiar on it, it feels like I have a little bit more power and I have a little more, not just power, but I like, dude, I'm just making an old choice because I'm comfortable and I'm familiar with that choice, but it's not that comfortable. Like, let's be honest, it's not that comfortable to make that choice. So if I can add a little bit of pain to that and say it's not that comfortable, so I find that more often than not, I'll make the new choice that usually is unfamiliar versus calling the new choice uncomfortable. The new choice may be uncomfortable, but more often than not, it's unfamiliar. And it should be unfamiliar. The fact that it's unfamiliar means that you're now using that suffering to create change.
I'm running out of excuses.
And it's about like getting leverage on ourselves to change, right? Because change is not it's a process. It's an art. It's not, sometimes you're going to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but your commitment to it and creating that new personality, like being, so one of the things now I do in my meditation, specifically in the morning, that's been helpful is I will actually mentally rehearse who I want to be, right? So let's say it's an area of life, let's be more tangible, scarcity and lack. Right? There's things about me, scarcity, lack, anxiety, these kind of things that I don't really enjoy. And okay, cool. Well, that's not, I journal on that. That's not who I want to be. Well, who do I want to be? I want to be trusting. I want to be connected to God. I want to have that flow of infinite consciousness and divine mind in me flow out through me and trust that he's going to take care of everything before me. And then operate and do stuff out of that consciousness, out of trusting, out of being more trusting, being more abundant, being more open, keeping the heart open versus closing. So I will actually sit and mentally rehearse, what would that person do? What would that person feel like? And I'll rehearse the old person. So I'm teaching my body how this new person behaves so that when the time comes and I can make an old choice that's familiar, I tend more often, the more I practice, to make the new choice. So I'm conditioning my body, much like a workout. Hey, but I can do it in the mind. I'm conditioning my body. When this event comes, hey, it's after lunch and you're disconnected, you're caught up in your humanness and your things. Oh, we connect back right there. Hey, we stop and we connect back. We open up the heart for a second and connect back to the divine in us and connect to abundance. And then we move forward. So I will because the mind doesn't know the difference, Jay, of something. So I can almost like put in the training wheels for the new person I'm looking to create and live into that new person now. And then teach the body before the event happens, what that would feel like, what that would look like. And I find that it makes it easier. I have like the little pathways to there versus creating it on the fly. And creating on the fly, you go unconscious. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, you can't repeat it. Well, yeah, you're just talking old school stuff, visualizing. We were all taught that, right?
I'm calling it mentally rehearse. Yes, I'm calling visualizing yourself doing it. But in that moment, not visualizing like one day I'm driving my Ferrari. I don't give a shit about material things. like those are added things. Let me rephrase that. I do care about those things, but I'm not focused on those things. If I can focus on being who I want to be and attracting the things, if I'm being abundant and whole, if I'm being whole, abundant, and worthy of receiving, those things will come. I'm focused on being the magnet that attracts those things. The magnet that's one with the Father. If I can be that continuously, consciously, joyful, and at peace, and secure in that, if I can dwell, you'll like this one. If I can dwell, Jay, in the secret place of the Most High consistently, and I can be in that shadow of the Almighty consistently, all these things are mine anyway. They're divinely mine. I am co-joint heirs with my brother Christ in all this. And the kingdom is mine as much as it is yours. If I can operate out of that consciousness consistently, I don't have to focus on material things or being somebody else. So really focusing the visualization or the mental rehearsal on who you're going to be and what you're going to be connected to. And where's your faith at? moment to moment, Jay. Where's my faith at? Where's my consciousness at? What am I focused on? Moment to moment, what am I feeling? And become so conscious that you don't let bullshit go by, like Gandalf on the bridge, right? Hey, you're not passing. You know what I mean?
I'm processing it all.
No, but
That's good.
it's good to talk to this stuff about you, man. With you and share this, and that's what inspired me to reach out to you and share this. I if we're struggling with this, Jay, and you and I are practicing, our brothers are struggling too, and we can help together. We can all help each other together. There's no need to go at it alone, guys. We all have these similar struggles. We're not that different. We're more similar than we're different, actually. A lot more. Like the same struggles JR I have them in a different way, and the same struggles I have, he has them in a different way. But they're at the core of it, it's the same struggle.
I'm just processing. There's so many things. I don't know. But yeah, I think you mentioned it before. So some of the things I'm working on that are similar to what you're talking about, but obviously from a different angle, is the daily struggle to die to yourself and live in Him. And that's one of the things that's giving me more peace now. And it's something that we talked about, I don't know how many shows ago, but you said when things are happening, it should seem serendipitous, like you didn't try. And you've described it as a magnet now, being a magnet for these things. And where I am is letting go of my ego, letting go of my will, and opening myself up to doing His will. And I don't know what His will is. His, capital H, God, His will. He put me on this earth for a reason. And one of the things that's been really good for me is I let go of all that stuff. Like we started before we got on this call, you were talking about growing and expanding, and I was talking about getting smaller. It's like, I don't even count, right? I don't want to think about anything that my human, I'm going to try to talk in Ray terms here, my human skin sack self of the world wants to focus on, because that got me nowhere for 45 years. Letting go now, we've talked about surrender before, and whatever His will is. And so I pray every day to do His will, be an obedient son, just like Jesus was, because Jesus didn't want to go get hung up on that cross and beat up and ridiculed, but He was doing His will. And why was He doing that? He was doing that to serve. He came to the world to serve, not to be served. And so that trifecta for me is dying to myself, to live in Him, do His will, being an obedient son, and serving are the things that are driving me. And my life's getting a whole lot easier, Ray.
I love it,
I have
man.
to pray every day to stay connected to that. But I don't have to do anything but whatever He wants me to do. And I don't know what that is. It just comes as He gives it to me. But it doesn't mean that I'm not working. Doesn't mean I'm not taking care of my family. Doesn't mean I'm not going to the gym. I'm doing all that. But life seems so much easier now that I've begun this practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. Dude, I love it. I love what you're doing. Something that you said triggered in me. I'm gonna tell it to you, dude. I'm just gonna say it, dude. What happens the more I practice and the more and by practice I mean meditate, I mean open up, I mean read these spiritual tracks, be with these texts, go for walks, etc. The more I practice consciousness, the more I practice being mindful, the more I practice connecting, the more like almost like a channel opens up, and spirit, God, higher self, whatever you want to call it, talks to me, and He sends like messages through me, and they just come out. And I know it's not mine to say, because I wouldn't say it that way. The Ray that people know, he wouldn't say it things like that. He just, and I know it because I'm witnessing it all. I'm stepping back. My higher self, the Christ in me, is witnessing what's happening, and He's allowing it to be said through me, almost like a channel. Does that make sense? Like I'm serving as a channel where the divine can speak through me, right? Because He can't. I like this, and this book was really good. He said it in here. He said in this book, Spiritual Economics, God can do no more for you than He can do through you.
Oh yeah, that was a good line.
That was a really good line, huh?
Line.
And that ties back to what I wanted to say to you. And it came up when you said it, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna say it. And then they're like, all right, say it. So I'll say it. You said something about Him living, or you living in Him, or something like that. What about letting Him live in you?
Yeah. That's dying to yourself and living in Him. Yeah. So
yes,
letting Him drive.
Let Him live in me. Let that flower shine out. That's where the light shines, right? Let's let Him live in me, because He already does. right? Let's not live to the false self, right? Let's focus our intention, our heart, our faith, our mind, what we feel be on him, and he'll guide us. He'll tell us what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And you might still do the same things, but your consciousness is centered in him, and his consciousness is centered on you. So now you're one.
Peaceful. It's peaceful.
He doesn't speak.
That's why I can't be as angsty. I can't be as angry anymore.
Yeah. He doesn't speak of non-peace. God is all peace. He cannot not do peace. Like he cannot not do good. He cannot not do not omnipresent. He cannot not do omnipotence, right? You get me? Like that. This is just who he is, dude. I love what you're doing, man. You still show up differently. There's an old koan in Buddhism. He said, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And what it meant is you still do the same things. You might still run a podcast. You might go work out, but the consciousness of how you're doing it and who you're being as you're doing changes everything. Your attitude changes, Jay. You're much more graceful. You're much more at ease. You're at peace. You're joyful, because joy is who we all are. But if you're focused in the human realm, you'll never be joyous there. You might be happy momentarily here and there, but
It's
joy,
fleeting.
yeah, but true joy and peace and love, man, that's of the divine. Only there will you seek that, will you find that security and that safety and that abundance. Abundance isn't in the material world, I've learned. True abundance is when that flows through you, because then you could lose the material stuff, but because you're one with the divine, more will flow to you. But you really got to believe, right? You can't be like that guy that approached the MJ and the master and said, hey, master, help me. I believe, but help me with my unbelief. And it's true. We all have unbelief, Jay, to be on 100. We all have unbelief, right? We all have times of not believing. But then forgive that and get back into your center and allow him to live through you. Get back to your connection. Remember who you really are. And that's the art and the process of this. It's a continual, ongoing commitment, discipline, process. Who are you committed to? And how you know who you answer? If you guys could ask that question constantly, and I'm still working on this too, guys. Where's my faith at? Where's my minute to minute, moment to moment? Where's my consciousness at? Did I go unconscious? Like, where am I at? Like, as you're doing an email or as you go and have lunch, where am I? Where'd I go? And like, you'll see it. If you ask the question, sometimes you're like, I'm in like fear land.
Oops.
I don't know if that happened to you. But how you will know is you went unconscious and you're like, you went somewhere else. And now you're separate, and now you're suffering, and now you're in worry, and now you're in fear, now you're in anxiety. Just being conscious of like, where's my faith at? Where's my consciousness right now? Like, where's my consciousness at? Where am I focused on? What am I feeling? Where's my level of faith right now, moment to moment? Like, check in with yourself.
We hit our mark, brother. We're about an hour in.
All right, my brother. Well, I certainly love you. I appreciate you. I think this was good for the soul, bro.
It was too long. I was missing it. I was missing rapping with you.
What did you take away? What did you kind of feel was good for you?
I mean, it's good to be able to compare notes, and it's better to be able to talk to you because we're both doing our thing, and a text here and there, a page here and there, an audio here and there. There's not enough context. There's not enough context, and so I feel better when we get to compare notes and then play off of each other, because then it takes our learning to another level. And not only that, but sharing it and putting a voice and words to what we're thinking so that we grow deeper into it. And so for me, this is like therapy. I don't know.
Man. No, I was like, man, should I reach out to him? I don't know. I've been gone too long. It's kind of like, that ex-girl, you hit her back up. Hey, you know what? You want to get together tonight? And it's been like 3 months.
Oh, come on, man. As soon as you said that, I was like, what time? I've been waiting. Look, I got the studio set up. I got everything dialed in.
I love it, man. No, man. Thank you for hopping on and let's do this more often. And I love that we get to share this, because think about it or not, a lot of guys don't have a space for this and they're on our same wavelength. Today, I spoke with a guy and he took my call because he's been listening to us. And I go, I needed a favor for something. Yeah, I needed a favor. And I know this guy, but I don't know him. Like, he's not my boy. He didn't need to spend 30 minutes with me, schooling me on what to do here. And he goes, and I go, oh man, no, I've got this podcast. I didn't know he was listening. And he goes, I took your call because of this. And I'm spending this time with you because of this.
Wow.
And
That's
I didn't even
divine.
know he was listening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's it, man.
much less finding value. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
That's good, man.
people are, what I got from him, bro, is people are feeling this emptiness and lack of fulfillment that the outer world isn't filling.
I'm going to give you guys, if you made it this far into our chit chat, I'll give you some reading, and it is in the Bible. I mean, it was life changing for me. I've shared it with my son, and I share it with all the high achievers like us. Is the book of Ecclesiastes. Solomon was known as the wisest man of his time. All the things that you're going through, not unique. You're not alone. We've all been there, and he was there 3,000 years ago or whatever it was. The book of Ecclesiastes for all you high achievers. Check it out.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you. So I had a cupcakes, I had the kid. Unless you got some new developments I don't know about yet.
One and done. Likewise, brother.
All right, bro. Love you, man. Thank you, my man.
Take care.